Joining me now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, Kevin Minnick. He's covered South Jersey high school sports for, I believe it's 30 years now. And something happened last night at the Camden Pleasantville game that cannot be overlooked. And as Kevin said on his Twitter, he's not seen this in his 30 years. Shots fired at the Pleasantville Camden game last night. It was called immediately. And Kevin was there last night. Kevin, before we get into it, I did want to say that I thought yourself and the media who were there did a great job at, doing a good job at just keeping everyone informed about what was going on and what happened last night.
Well, Josh, that was something that, like I had said, I'd never experienced in all the years that I've been covering high school sports. And it's just an absolute shame that this continues to be a part of America these days. It seems as though it's something that you hear on the news, you watch on the news, and you hear about far, far too often. And until, I think a lot of people see it and they say it's not going to happen to me, it's not going to happen here, and they look at it and they think about it for a little bit, and then they kind of go about their lives. But when you have seen it, and when you see the reactions and the chaos, it really hits home. And last night was just a really, really ugly and terrible scene. And once you kind of sit back and collect your thoughts a little bit, and that's kind of when the journalistic instincts, I guess, kind of kick in a little bit, and you just kind of react. And that's basically what I did. I didn't shoot any video prior to, I believe, the ambulance making its way on, the first ambulance making its way onto the field, because I was kind of, in retrospect, maybe in shock myself. So, but to, from that point on to see what was going on and to try to, in essence, do my job, that's what I tried to do.
Kevin, I opened the show talking about this because we had the game last night here on 97.3 ESPN. I was in the studio, running the board for the game, and all I could think of for the last, 12 hours, Kevin, is, for me, from my perspective, I've played sports now, I've covered sports, and I believe you probably have a similar feeling to this, and let me know if you do. To me, sports is a way of escape for a lot of people. It's a sanctuary. It's a place to go to get away from the real world. And I feel like last night there were people whose entire worlds were completely violated because of this, and it'll never be the same for them because sports is supposed to be the place you get away from all the real world stuff.
I completely agree with you. And, I think for myself, the innocence, so to speak, of high school sports, a bit of that was taken away. And excuse me. In all honesty, I probably will never go to another high school game and think about it the same way. I've been to so many games and in so many places that a lot of people probably wouldn't want to go to, but I've never felt unsafe. And last night I certainly did not feel unsafe. I never thought, and no one could ever think, for the most part, that something like this was going to ever happen. It's just not something you think about until it actually happens. And then when it happens, maybe a mechanism in your brain just triggers, and you wonder, well, was there enough of a police force present? Was there enough medical people there? I just don't have the answer to that. I just don't know. I'm sure that there were enough police officers. There were police officers there. I mean, I saw a couple of them, when I walked into the stadium there. But you just don't think, was it enough? What would have happened if this game was not played on a Friday night and it was played on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock under sunny skies? Would that have changed things? It's so much to take in. But like I said, I think, high school sports, like you said, it is a release. It is and sports in general. It's an opportunity to sit down and watch and enjoy the activity that you love. And for a lot of people, that experience was taken away from them last night and will never be the same. So for me, I'm an emotional person, and I'm not ashamed of it. And about it, it's really hit me hard, and I can only imagine, how it's hit those that were much, much more impacted than myself.
Kevin Minnick joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Covers high school football, high school sports in general for NJ Advanced Media, joining us as he does each morning here on 97.3 ESPN after a very sad night last night. Shots fired at the Camden Pleasantville game. Kevin, I want to grab back at something you said a minute ago, which was you said we don't know what would have happened if this game was played during the day instead of at night, and that was one of the questions that has surrounded some of the scheduling of some of the games over the last couple of weeks for some of these other schools in their games. Was that, for example, some people felt like the reason why that the Mainland Ocean City game was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon was because there were some concerns about if it was played at night versus during the day. Is that something that maybe schools and the people involved in these events need to maybe consider a little bit more as the time of the game moving forward?
It's definitely something that should be considered. I know that the vast majority of schools love playing on Friday nights, and Friday night football really is a special thing, and I understand that. But in hindsight, I think that maybe the powers that be need to take a little bit more of a deeper look into the specifics, the uniqueness of the event that's being held at their facility. And it's a tough call. I know that I was told that may have been the biggest crowd Pleasantville's had for a football game ever, or at least in a long, long time.
Yeah. And
they should have had that opportunity to enjoy that. And it should have been a night to remember. And whether they won or lost, it should have been a night that brought that community together. And, sadly, it's going to bring the community together in a much, much different way. And, it's a tough call. It's a tough call, but, as a parent, as someone, who would, if my son said, well, Dad, I'm going to go watch the game tonight, I probably wouldn't think twice. But I think administrators, and the thing is, if I'm thinking about this right now, the people that should be thinking about this, in all honesty, better put it on their agenda, and they better come up with a plan, and they better let people know and be transparent as to what exactly is going to transpire and what's going to happen, because these things should not happen. And yes, it happened last night, and it was a freakish, ugly scene, and it may never happen again there. It may never happen in South Jersey, New Jersey for a while. You just don't know. But the people that have to make the decisions, the people that are there, and whether they want to readily admit it or not, are responsible for the safety of everyone who walks through their gates, better make sure they know exactly what's going on. And if it means not putting those lights on Friday and playing on Saturday morning and getting half the crowd, if it comes down to a factor of it being, a safety deal, it shouldn't even be an issue. It should not be an issue. And just because it happened in Pleasantville is not to say it can't happen anywhere. People, people are going out there are saying, well, it's Pleasantville. Camden was involved. And people understand the history of these two towns and what has happened in these communities, the violence, the negativity, and it's just highlighted now. But that could have happened anywhere. So while I say, okay, Pleasantville, you better reevaluate, so to speak, I think this is a time where every school and every administration needs to reevaluate their situation and take a serious look at things. And if they feel as though something there's a possibility of something like this happening, they better take every step possible that they can to make sure it doesn't.
Kevin, on the field, there was still a game last night that was interrupted, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because I've been asked by a couple different people now since what happened last night, what is next for Camden and Pleasantville? Because the game was called in the middle of the third quarter. It was a close game. It's not like either team was running away with the score. So, what are the scenarios of what happens next?
Yeah, we're gonna the NJSIA is looking into that, and we're gonna try to make contact with those people this morning too, and find out what their stance is. It was a good game. It was 6-0, and Pleasantville is one play away from tying it up. So in that respect, you would want to hopefully see that the game continues. If it was a 3 or 4 touchdown game and Camden was in firm control, I wouldn't argue that the game would be ended right then and there, and Camden would move on. This obviously affects a couple of other teams. It affects Cedar Creek and Bernards today because the winner of that game is supposed to get the team that advanced from last night. So it affects them as well, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how. I can only imagine it being extremely difficult to get those kids back up and emotionally prepared to play the remainder of that football game. I think it will fall much, much harder on Pleasantville's shoulders than it will Camden's, given the fact, it was at Pleasantville, it was in their bleachers, it was yards away from their bench. That's something, that administrators, I think, and I know the coaching staff is thinking about, can we get these kids emotionally ready to play again? And do they even want to play? Just off the top of my head, if I'm Pleasantville, do I ask the kids and let them make the decision? Do I even do I start? Maybe do I start there? Is that a starting point? Do these kids really even want to play? And then if they want to play, then okay, well, we can see what the next steps are going to be. But the state was going to have to make a decision soon, like I said, because it does affect. It's a snowball effect down the road with a lot of other things, and hopefully, I'm pretty certain that they're going to make some decision on that, at some point this afternoon.
It's interesting you mentioned the players because on Twitter you see players like Muhammad Torre and Ernest Howard who play for Pleasantville, and if you were to go through their Twitter feed, I think you might see what I see, which is they're frustrated. They seem like they're really, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they're ticked because it almost feels like for them they had an opportunity taken away from them and to play a football game that they felt like they had a chance to win. And I think maybe if their attitude reflects the rest of the team, I think at least on Pleasantville's part, they feel like they want to play this game.
I would agree with you. This is something, I got an opportunity to talk to one of the kids after the game, and, basically his in a nutshell is that, we were excited to play. We had worked so hard to get to this opportunity. Pleasantville was on the cusp of something really special, and if they win that game, they go to a sectional final, for the first time since I believe it was 1976, and these kids can look back and we were part of something special, and that's been taken away, and like I said, it's going to be hard for them to. I think it's going to be hard to bounce back. I think kids are resilient, and they may very well come to an agreement. Yeah, we want to play. Yeah, we're going to do this. And then what happens when they step on the field? I don't know if does memories of what happened automatically start kicking through their brain, and next thing you know, they just kind of fall flat. You just don't know with kids. You don't know with teenagers. You don't know what their emotions are really like. But yeah, I mean, this was supposed to be something special. It really was, and it was taken away. And I'm sure that the administration and the police departments and then all the law enforcement agencies are doing their job down there to bring this to a quick, bring this together as quickly as they can and help that community, kind of get itself back on its feet. But it's going to take a while, and I just don't know if playing a football game is that important right now.
Kevin Minnick has joined us here as he does every Saturday morning on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at KMinnick Sports, NJ Advanced Media. Kevin, I really appreciate you taking the time this morning. I know that last night impacted a lot of people, and I thank you for coming on with your honesty and your openness to talk about this morning.
It was my pleasure, Josh. I think it's something that people are going to talk about, and it's something that should be talked about. And it's just a sad situation, and it's a sad day, and I just hope it never happens again.
Well, I look forward to talking to you next time under better circumstances, Kevin.
I hope so too. Maybe next week, we'll be talking about some finals and some teams looking to win some championships, and that's what these kids have been working for, since last season ended, and those dreams are certainly there for a lot of teams. So we'll be back out there, and I look forward to talking to you guys again next week.